We will continue with the Future Society track, and up next we have a very timely and intriguing topic. I was tempted to use ChatGPT for this introduction because it would be just so obvious, but it was maybe too obvious. From mind to machine, exploring the cutting edge of generative AI and its possibilities for the future. The panel is moderated by Vladislav Linko, who is an associate at Hetman Law Firm. With him, please welcome to the stage Horia Niculescu, Anna Bulakh, Renate Strazdina, and Taivo Pungas. Please, round of applause for our panelists.
Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. To introduce the great speakers that will be coming in just a second, I'd say that AI is probably the most popular word of this entire event that you've heard of maybe a bit too much. But you will have to bear with it for at least 40 more minutes because we will have to repeat it a lot today. So let me introduce the incredible speakers we have. Starting with Horia. Yeah. Anna.
Yeah. Hi.
Renate. And last but not least, Taivo. All right, so maybe we can start by having a brief round of introductions. So how are you connected to AI? Well, why are you here? What kind of expertise do you have in this area? So starting kind of from Horia and...
So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and thank you all for being here. This is all for you. So why am I here? I want to share part of my experience that I gained through Google Cloud and through working with startups. And ethics and responsibility in AI is a really, really hot topic that we need to address as soon as possible. And I hope that our inspiration here will help you develop your solutions.
Yep.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Anna. So what brought me and how I came to AI ethics that we'll discuss today. So my background in security and defense policies, I spent in that field around 10 years and then transitioned into technologies, building counter-disinformation tools and then AI. And it's interesting how this transition, understanding risks to national security, to society security, to individual security, how do they intersect with technologies? So now I'm working for actually mitigating those risks. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you and good afternoon. Very happy to be here, and I'm representing Microsoft. I have quite a long history with artificial intelligence because I studied more than 20 years ago, and then it was still in the lab. Most probably some of you remember, and now it's real, and now it's defining technology of this time. And in my daily work, so I'm working with regulation and making it real for different applications of artificial intelligence. So happy to share my experience.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Taivo. I'm currently at NFT but I've been in AI around 10 years, starting from when DeepMind first released their Atari playing models, which were super unimpressive, but felt like magic back then. More recently, as a hobby, I represent, I would say, the builder, engineer perspective, perhaps, which I hope will add something to the discussion, given that everyone else is so highly credentialed. I just hack around on command line. So,
yeah, thank you guys, and let's get straight into the topic of why we are here. So AI is something that is very exciting and that everyone wants a piece of, right? So someone wants to build, develop, research it. So in your perspective, so for someone as a startup, as a venture capital firm, so the people that are looking to get into this field, so we want to solve some problems, right? So that's the core of a startup and, well, of a venture fund actually investing into a startup. So what kind of problems do you think, what gaps there are that can be resolved in this field at this point? So maybe starting with, again, Horia.
Okay, I'll go first. So first and foremost, I don't think that there is a silver bullet when it comes to AI, right? This is so generic that it doesn't do justice if we'd say, yeah, we need to do this. So I would split it into 3 types of AI approaches. First, it would be the innovators, right? You take the Lego blocks that are already available, and then you build that niche, that market, you cover that market need that right now the users are really asking for it. And then you have the inventors, right? Pushing the boundaries of what's possible right now. And of course, the third part, it would be the platform providers. Like they build solutions so that everyone else can have access to that technology. And when you think of that, each of these players have their own needs. And right now, I think that first they need to be understood by venture capitalists, by investors, like how do you position yourself? And right now, let's not just ask any AI company, like when will you release the next large language model or the next foundational model? Like, no, maybe that's not the way to approach it. That's one thing. And the second thing is also try to find solutions for each of these categories in order to push the education for ethics and responsibility. And I hope that we will answer these questions today.
Yeah, maybe Renate, you can share your perspective. So you also work with kind of the bigger corporates. So do you share the sentiment that these are kind of the areas that need work? And
definitely yes, and if I can build on what you already shared, we are at the moment in the period of time where we are trying what is possible. And if there is one thing that I really encourage to do is really to test and try and pilot as much as you can. Because this is the way how we all are learning, and actually this will be also input for ethics and responsible AI discussion. So this is very, very much needed. What I also see, what is important, when we are starting the discussion, exciting discussion about what AI can do, always we need to, first of all, be ready and be prepared with data states that we have. And this is one question that for some, it's more understandable. For some, it somehow seems, oh, I will work out. But actually, the data state, so that we can make sure that data can be integrated, can be used, it's very, very important. So this is one more thing. And the third thing that I would mention is about domain-specific services and applications. We have general platforms. They are amazing. So we can use, and you can use, and build on top of this. And where we see really need is be domain-specific. And this will also, of course, be linked to data. But if it's a healthcare, then focus on healthcare. If it's retail, then focus on retail. So this domain knowledge is very, very important to be successful in the area.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And kind of you touched upon this, well, we still need to develop it. And Taivo, you actually were in the weeds. You were in a couple of startups, Estonian startups that had kind of a lot of connection to AI. So how do you feel of a perspective of a developer? So kind of building AI, were there any particular kind of differences from building a regular software product? So something that you feel that was very different in doing that?
From a day-to-day perspective, it is very different. I guess the major difference would be that it's a non-binary like evaluation criterion. Like, how good is it? With most software, you can be like, does it pass the test? Yes, no. You have like 100 tests. It's good if it passes all of them. With any, let's say, machine learning system, or now like LLM-powered system, AI system, it is more of a continuum. It could be like, I had 1,000 sessions that users made. Out of those, like 850, it was kind of okay. With 100, it was like very good. So it's a bit more difficult to evaluate how good the system is. And that is, in fact, one of the, I would say, the biggest problems, one of the most difficult things to do. It's not writing the code, not writing the prompt and sending it to OpenAI or Azure. It's figuring out how good your system is. And of course, as an extension of that, like good can be measured on different axes. It's speed, safety, actual performance on the task, cost, etc. So that is, I think, one of the biggest issues right now. But before that, even actually, like the top issue that, let's say, at least the newest generation of AI, so large language model-based apps, biggest problem that they have is mostly lack of product market fit. Like, you're not solving a real problem. Everything you see on Twitter, it's like someone wrote like 100 lines of code, made a nice video, posted it on Twitter, went viral, got 50,000 likes. But when you go to their website, it's like join waitlist, and then you hear nothing back. So it's very, very early experiments. Most of these things, as products, they don't seem to work yet. And we as the, let's say, startup or in general engineering technology community, we're running like 100,000 parallel experiments on what is possible. And there are downsides to that, but I also like to see what comes out of it.
Thank you. And now, let's imagine we are building our own AI new service, and we've found the market fit. We're started developing. It's going great. But I think a lot of us have this kind of ethical concern that, okay, there's a lot of good that the generative AI can do, but then there's also a lot of ethical problems, starting from the black box. So how the AI is actually kind of managing the data all the way through to collecting consents, and the list goes on. So Anna, you have a very kind of unique perspective as kind of chief ethics officer, or kind of dealing with ethics as your primary kind of job at the startup. So in your case, when were you actually, when did you join the company? Was it right from the start, or was it somewhere when the product is already ready on the market? So what's your experience in that part?
Yeah, so I will share those both experiences because I worked already in 2 generative AI companies, and now I'm working with Speech's voice cloning. But before I worked with Reface, that is deepfakes or voice swapping app. In case of Respeecher, we're producing a synthetic voice. What it means that we're using data samples of voice recording of one person from 2 to 30 minutes. And then indistinguishable synthetic voice, we develop a voice model, and it's a speech-to-speech, so another person can drive that voice model in real time. So it's applied heavily in entertainment industry, in movies. We've done voice of Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Nixon's voice, we've got Emmys. And then from actually entertainment industry, which also now opened new directions, cybersecurity and healthcare. When you work with biometric data, and when you work with the protection of likeness that is not yet regulated, we developed those ethical standards from the beginning. Why it happened? Because in case of Respeecher, the main directions were B2B. And voice marketplace, that is democratization of technology and giving access to small creators to 100 plus voices with permission, is already next stage. So we already have like both B2C and B2B. But again, the foundation of the company from the beginning was based on voice consent. So a person who is a voice owner comes to a company to clone the voice, and this person remains owner of the synthetic voice. And it's interesting discussion because in copyright industry, who is the owner of Gen AI, right? We are conducting thought leadership globally because we are well-established already voice cloning company with Emmy Awards, that actually your likeness should be protected and your likeness belongs to you. So it's copyright direction. Second direction is actually AI regulation. It also touches like copyright on data training or data sets that we are acquiring and how we train in that. And when we are working with big industry players, we are already now inventing kind of procedures and documents showing them that our data is clean, that it's copyrighted, that is authorable. So we are building this bridges of trust by ourselves, inventing those self-regulatory tools. So at this stage, generative AI is in low risk by standards of European Union AI draft. In US, the regulation is not yet out there. But what does it mean? That we ourselves as industry developing those best practices to mitigate potential risks that technology can be abused. In our case, that someone's voice can be stolen, right? So how we achieving that is building those policies inside of a company, the data governance, that some people, limited people have access to the data, we are training the data, we are deleting it after the project is done. We have as a tool, and actually it is a question who is responsible for AI, is it distributors, platforms, etc. I look at the market from our perspective is that tools, distribution platforms and users. And we as a tool already moderating the content that our users are creating, not to spoil the image of generative AI on a stage when technology is just growing. So we want to maximize this kind of push boundaries of more spillover effect from entertainment industry to cybersecurity to healthcare, and not to damage the perception of technology itself. So I would say like it's two streams. Policies inside of company, advocacy outside of company. And on partnerships, I will probably mention on that after in another question because I'm taking too much time. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. But yeah, you touched upon that basically at this point we don't have any particular regulation for AI. So what we have are general principles and the regulation that was already in place, things like GDPR for data protection. But bigger companies are actually already introducing their kind of guidance on how to use AI, how to develop it. And again, the bigger players are, of course, first in that they have some obligation to lead the market. So maybe Renate can share. So did you see the impact that this kind of taking the lead, what it's had on the market?
Yeah. So it is a very good question, and Anna gave a very good example from real life. What does it mean to have responsible AI solutions? And how we see it, so responsible AI, ethical AI should be by design. So it's not that we are doing something afterwards, so it's not an afterthought. It is by design already when we are planning the product. And what we did in Microsoft, and it's publicly available, so we defined responsible AI principles that together with our partners and broader stakeholder group, we turned into standards that are also available, and even in a very practical guidelines how to develop products that are using artificial intelligence and do it in a responsible way. Just to give an example, so where it starts with impact assessment. If you are planning the product that will use artificial intelligence, so you are doing impact not only from technology side, not only from legal side, also from inclusion, accessibility, user experience, etc., etc. So we are talking here about multidimensional teams who should be involved from the very beginning, so that we are making things right. And it's very good that we are in parallel also working on regulations in different parts of the world. And we need to have those discussions and dialogues because we need to understand each other. And I really liked what I read in one article about responsible AI, that we need to all talk the same language. because tech people are speaking differently about the lawyers than copyright experts, like users. And we need to find this one language that we are talking, and then we will able to find the solution. So this will be a journey.
Mm-hmm. And Horia, do you agree that Renate suggested that there should be a lot of work to be done, and it's obviously for a startup it's difficult. So do you agree or disagree that well, you need to do these things, that it's something that's actually useful and that's well?
I totally agree with everything that was said here, though I would play a bit the devil's advocate, right? And I would say what happened in the last 2 months, 8 weeks, and the level of innovation that we've seen in the generative AI space cannot compare with whatever happened in the last 4 years, right? So on one hand, we have innovation at its prime, and on another hand, we have a lack of regulation and also lack of education. For example, we have a great model, right, that works really well, and then we have the community which builds on top of it. And then you have the first iteration, and then the second iteration, and then the fourth iteration. Each of these would iterate one upon another. And we've already seen this, right? Like take Linux and take all the distros of Linux, which were building on top of another, and then you get to the 20th layer, 30th layer, and distros built on top of each other. And then again, my question would be, if I'm using one of these models, right, that were enhanced over and over again, should I care what was used initially, or should I care what was transformed, what was taken out, or what was put in these models? I would definitely care about that, right? But then again, we need to balance it out, innovation versus regulation. And I wouldn't say, let's put boundaries, let's put guardrails right now. What I would say is, let's make it transparent. First thing that we need to do is make everything transparent and measurable, right? Like us in Google, we take pride that we are a KPI-driven company and that we measure everything. So before taking a decision, let's make it transparent, let's measure, and then let's build these regulations.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I see the word regulation that's been used a couple of times already. And again, for a lawyer as myself, it's an important part of building a business. It's what sets bounds for what you can and cannot do. And at this point, we see that a lot of bigger companies are actually, well, taking place of that regulator to some degree. But the regulation, local and international, will obviously come. So Taivo, you were, I think, an advisor to the Estonian government in the area of AI. So how do you see at least on the Estonian level, the government, if you still have contact with them, of course, kind of, how do they feel about AI and this area in general?
I think you overplay my importance. I participated in a few meetings where I occasionally gave my sort of not dissimilar to this panel, yeah. Where I shared my thoughts. I don't think I mean almost nothing. But anyway, I don't think on the Estonian level we have anything very specific, or at least as far as I'm aware. Rather, it's mostly like GDPR, which applies to AI as well, for lack of any other regulation. My main experience following GDPR at Veriff and elsewhere is that I don't think I have ever gotten an answer from a lawyer that will say like, yes, this is definitely okay under GDPR, which is wildly bad. Like, I am for regulation, but unclarity is extremely bad, because if there is a 5% probability of getting sued for like a $5 billion fine, you will not release the product in EU, which Google has not done with Bard, at least as far as I'm aware, like a week ago, which makes sense. It's a good business decision. Like, I agree with that. And it's a failure, basically, of the EU to make the GDPR framework so vague. So basically any regulation that we make for AI, I'm basically like, even if the rules are bad, at least if they are easy to interpret in a way that you know in advance what is allowed and what is not. It's sort of like you start the business and then like 5 to 8 years later, you may be sued for like $100 million for like doing the business wrong without any clarity in advance whether like what you did wrong or how you should act. That's basically the situation with GDPR as far as I've seen it from the perspective of an AI development team in a company. And I just hope that this will not happen with the AI regulation. I hope it will be much more clear, much more predictable in terms of what you can do, what you cannot do.
Yeah, and legal certainty, that's basically what every entrepreneur wants, that when you're building something, well, at least your lawyer can tell you what to do if you can't figure it out yourself.
Yes. I accept yes or no, but maybe is a really bad answer.
Yeah, unfortunately, I had to give a few too many of those maybes in my time. But the EU is actually building their own AI regulation right now, and I think you're also involved in that part as well. A little bit, at least, not to overplay it. But yeah, how do you feel about this regulation at this point? So, how is it playing out?
Yeah, I would a little bit shift probably from strict, because we have to remember when we create generative AI applications, products, we actually really influence information ecosystem. So how users interacting with information, how they perceiving information, of course, how they creating those digital assets, and how they becoming creators. And expecting that regulators will solve those problems and evaluate the impact for you, it won't happen. So what was happening for this year actually was a good time for us as generative AI, those companies that have established themselves in the market, that we could really evaluate, like just on a case of voice cloning. There are 3 levels of impact that we evaluating. Is individual impact. How does, like, for example, if your likeness is stolen, your voice is stolen, and it's like, affiliated with this particular product, how do we stop that? So in our case, we require permission. In voice marketplace, we have only voices with permissions, and voice actors actually are gaining and scaling their voices, they're protected. So actually, we're building this communication between voice actors, creative industry. A medium level is your brand level, right? How release of a new product would impact perception about you. Maybe you are expecting just to create a hype. Okay, you can release open model and then allow everyone create voices of anyone, or you can take it step by step, create a credible reputation and actually use it as a commodity as well. And the higher level is actually societal impact. How does this huge amount of synthetic voices that going out by podcasters, we have real-time system, or for example, Gen AI images going out, but let's talk about just sound. How do we mitigate abuse of our system? So we moderate it. So we are moderating how users are behaving, and it's in a tool. What we are doing now already, yesterday we released this with Adobe, the digital signature to every synthetic audio file. So it means it's a new standard where it will be digitally signed, and those platforms that support this C2PA standard would see the metadata and digital signatures. This exactly content was created and modified by AI in this specific tool. So what does it mean? If you remember 20 years ago, there were many HTTP websites, non-secured. You could go to any website and get scammed. Now there are many websites, adopted standard of signing security signature. So it means when you interact with non-secure, non-safe environment warns you, right? It's the same what we're trying to adopt in generative AI. So what I mean here is, regulation is not yet there, and we've done all that job. Right? It's self-regulation, but it's really positive best practices that we are doing, actually in partnership with a major big tech, emerging tech, big tech, and these partnerships are important.
Yeah, and this point we've had a talk about technology, we had a talk about regulation, policy, but maybe taking a step back to finish off our panel, to take a look at the bigger picture. So again, we all want this generative AI to become even more exciting, to become, well, even more useful. So maybe I would like to give every panelist a chance to tell what they really believe is important in this area. So what can be done by each of us, or what will be happening? So kind of give a good word of advice maybe to the public, and maybe we can just go from Horia and to Taivo.
So first and foremost, we really need to take this topic seriously, and we need to embed it in the project charter from day zero. It's not a thing that can be fixed later, and it should be a thing, like the ethics and responsible AI, which should be tackled since the inception of the project. That's one. Second is listen to our users. Right now, all the signals are there, and all the users of all these Gen AI applications, they really want us to treat their data respectfully. And not only their data, right? Because we're not living in this selfish world. And everybody wants us, the providers, right? To pay respect to everyone's data. This is what we're doing at Google. And actually, this is why we've split our offering, right? So we have Bard, for example. I've read there was a question like, why isn't Bard, available? There are some questions. Why isn't Bard available right now in Estonia? And I would say that Bard right now is still an experiment. We're still calling it an experiment. And it's a solution that caters the B2C, right? It's for users, enthusiasts. Then again, when we're switching to commercial use, right, to catering all of the needs of the startups, of the people in this room, then we have Palm. So the first thing that we've done, we've split, this hype, the user and enthusiast technology, from the commercial technology. And I want to stress this as much as possible. When you have, these small-scale projects, then definitely pay attention to ethics, to responsibility. But when you put the product to the market, be sure that all of the teams are on board and you already have the governance in place to control both the data and the result of your models.
Yeah, thank you. And yeah, Anna.
I will be quick. I think my main message is that AI itself is a reflection of society, and society expects AI to respond with, responsibility back. So no one wants, for example, their creation to be stolen. No one wants their likeness to be stolen. But also everyone wants to have more creativity. So when starting, generative AI products, it's really cool to have both, technical team and multidisciplinary teams inside. For example, I'm from the background of security, right, in defense, but I could bring this perception of risks that we can mitigate then. It's not about just simply legal, it's about understanding for whom you're building this product and how this product can be potentially abused. And answering those questions actually will make life really easier for many companies and new, really fast-growing companies, because then fixing problems is another case. But I'm against of stopping innovation. I'm up for that we might think a little bit like 2 steps ahead what we are creating.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I will building on what Anna said. So still, I will repeat. So responsible AI is by design. So it's a very beginning. It could be maybe for some people a little bit more boring than the real development, but this is very important. But we haven't touched one. And actually, Anna started to talk about artificial intelligence augmenting person. Be it a doctor, be it a software developer, be it a teacher or musician. And where we can do, and most probably we will do a lot, so we will build solutions that will co-work with those specialists in all the possible professions. And I think this is where we need to focus at the moment. So person is in the loop. Person will control, and artificial intelligence is augmenting and allowing to be more creative and more productive. And I think we all have already tools in the market that can be used to develop those so-called co-pilots. for each and every profession.
Yeah, thank you. And Taivo?
I have, I guess, 2 points. One is that I think basically generative AI is a bad term. It's kind of misleading because it gives you a mental image of an AI making a picture from scratch or from a prompt or generating a blog post, whereas the potential of the technology is much broader. It's basically anything that you can do without leaving your laptop can probably be done relatively well with GPT-4. Maybe not all of it, but maybe like 40%, 50%, which is quite significant. Imagine if like we bumped up the GDP of all knowledge workers by 2x. That would be very big. So it's not limited to just generating text or voice or whatever. And that's one of the reasons I believe we haven't really even seen like most of the value that will come out of this technology. And that's also a reason for most of you who are building something on your own or part of a company, or if you're a VC, then part of your portfolio, think about places where you could sort of like replace virtual human intelligence to an extent. So virtual being like you can do it behind a computer. A human could do it behind a computer. And if you want to like have a practical takeaway, then think of those places, or try to think of this technology as like a virtual intelligence. It can't act in the real world. It's not a robot. It can't come and like hug me or bring me a Coca-Cola from the fridge, but it can summarize my email, do some research for me, many other potential use cases, and like I'm really looking forward to seeing all of these implementations, these features in existing applications, not just people creating Chrome extensions for doing things on top of your app. Just implement it yourself in the app. And I think maybe that's also good, helps you get more users' attention from the media right now. But yeah, I would like to see more of that.
Yeah, and I think we all are looking forward to kind of having a similar panel in a year or two and seeing what exciting things will come in just a couple of years, because the progress we've had in the last couple of months has been just incredible. But I think that's the end of our panel. Thank you for listening. I really much suggest to talk to these people, find them somewhere, because in the meeting room they were talking about everything from philosophy to history and art. So do really take the chance to talk to these incredible people, and I also hope to see you at Latitude.
Thank you.